So the question is, if the MRI is positive, do we need a spinal tap? And my answer is it really depends on what all the diagnostic criteria are teaching us. So if you're talking about the most common form of MS, which is called relapsing multiple sclerosis, we're looking for someone who has at least one event, which sounds like a relapse. So either a transverse myelitis or a optic neuritis or a brainstem syndrome. And if they have lesions on the brain and spinal cord, we try to look for lesions in different locations, which we call dissemination in space. And there's spinal cord, base of the brain, which is called the infratentorium, a position called the periventricular white matter, juxtacortical or cortical. Those are the different locations. We also now include the optic nerve, and so there's a new sixth location, and this is from the most recent evolution of the diagnostic criteria. And so we're looking to have at least one spot in two of those different locations. So let's say infratentorium and spinal, or spinal cord and juxtacortical, okay? And that would meet the so-called criteria for dissemination in space, which is not enough to diagnose someone with MS. We also need to find dissemination in time. Now, how do you do dissemination in time? Well, there's many different ways. One way is that you can have a second event, right? So at least 30 days after the first event, you have a second event, and so that's clearly dissemination in time because those things didn't occur at the same time. The second way is you can get a second MRI that shows a new spot. So those were not the same because they didn't occur on the same scan. The third way is that you can have one MRI that has an enhancing lesion and a non-enhancing lesion. So the enhancing lesion is new by definition and the non-enhancing lesion is not new. And so that way you've met the criteria for dissemination in time because those are different times. There's another way, and that's with positive spinal fluid. And positive spinal fluid is defined as having two or more unpaired oligoclonal bands. And so, not to be too nerdy, but what you're doing is you're drawing spinal fluid and then you're drawing blood and you're looking at the antibodies in both. And so if you have an overproduction of antibodies in the spinal fluid, more than you would expect to see as compared to the blood, then that's considered positive and that would meet dissemination in time. Now, I would submit to you all that the majority of patients in my practice don't seem to require a spinal tap. That through the clinical history, their neurological examination, and serial imaging, we don't need to obtain a spinal tap. I would say that probably about 1 in 10 patients I'm working up end up getting a spinal tap.